Hi everyone, my name's Rob Vai. I'm from S2S Sports Australia. I'm here with a very special guest. We've got Ronald Griffiths here today.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me along.
Ronald Griffiths was very generous of his time. He's been down in Newcastle, that's his home, and do you want to tell us while we're here at Mascot, where you're about to head off to?
Yeah, just arrived in Mascot, so relocating to Auckland tomorrow. Start of the 2025 NRLW journey for myself and the family to go to the Warriors.
Awesome. And tell us about your coaching and footy. So all started in Newcastle. Were you someone that grew up always aspiring to be a coach, or were you someone that aspired to have the NRL dream? What was your experience with playing in Newcastle and coaching Newcastle?
Oh, I think from a very young age, as far back as I can remember, I was always around rugby league, and my dad coached and played, so I was forever in the sheds or going to training. So I spent my whole time growing up just around rugby league. And for me, I started at 5 years of age, and I had a dream that of playing in the ARL or NRL as it is now, and unfortunately didn't get to achieve that. But from a young age, I started actually as a player coach. It just got thrust upon me when I was about 24 it was, and then from that point on I coached one season, and then I went back and played one more year. But from pretty much that first season I knew I wanted to be a coach, and I reckon by mid-year, after halfway through the year, I thought to myself, I'd love to do this full time, and for the next 20 years that's all I did was chip away working towards becoming a coach. It was a long road, but in the end I got there.
Yeah, awesome. And I've heard on the Hayden Knowles podcast, is someone who's always been keen to learn. He was one of the people that helped you along the way as well. Who were your biggest mentors when it came to coaching, and what did you learn most from them?
I think first and foremost, when I was a kid, my dad was a captain coach, and then he just coached after that. And I reckon the lessons I learnt from him are the ones that I still use now. They pretty much, my coaching philosophy embodies those lessons that I was taught by him. And I reckon, if you're talking about a philosophy, I could sum it up in one sentence, but that's something I haven't changed from. And there's other coaches that I've worked with along the way, and Hayden's one, Garth Brennan's another, Rick Stone, guys at local league level that I've coached with in Newcastle, or had as part of my staff. I've learnt from them, and they've all got something to share with you. I mean, that's the good thing about good coaches. They're happy to share their time and impart their knowledge. They don't keep secrets. And more recently, I've done a fair bit of work with Brian McDermott, who's at the Knights. I've found him really beneficial for my education just this last period of time, this last 18 months. Yeah.
Awesome. And you got to a stage where you were obviously given an opportunity to transition over to the women's game. What was the factors, I guess, that were pushing you to want to try coaching in the female space for the NRLW, and did you have any experience prior coaching females?
I'd had a little bit of experience involved with the Indigenous All-Stars, so I was an assistant coach there to Dean Witters, and the year that I was involved was the first year we'd actually beat the non-Indigenous All-Stars team. And after that, that was my only initial experience. And I went back to coaching men. And when I came back to Newcastle, there was just an opportunity. I was talking with the people at the club, and they just said, there's an opportunity to coach NRLW. Would you like to do it? And I said, yeah, for sure. For me, it wouldn't matter who I was coaching, what age group, men or women. I love coaching. But I also seen it as an exciting challenge. Obviously, the first year in, they weren't that successful, and I thought if we could get this right, Newcastle is a real rugby league stronghold, and they love their footy. And I thought if we could get it right and we could get the town behind them, we'd be able to create some real change there for female pathways in Newcastle, which we managed to do.
Awesome. And when you first went into the female space, what was some of the things that surprised you about all your experiences working in the male space versus going into the female space?
Well, I think sometimes with the men there's an unassumed knowledge because they've played from under sevens through to NRL, or under sevens through to grade or SG Ball, Harold Matts and Jersey Flegg and the like. There's an unassumed knowledge that they've actually got the skills. Whereas with the ladies, they haven't had the haven't had the chance to play from under sevens right through to NRLW. So I think the finite detail of the skill development, didn't surprise me, but that was something that I knew that we had to do. I think that one of the most surprising things was how grateful the ladies are, how much they just soak in and want to keep soaking in, and how much information they actually need. It doesn't matter what it is. The ladies want the information. It was really surprising from that perspective.
And any players in particular when you first started that surprised you about whether it was their efforts or anything in particular when it came to just how they trained, or anyone that stood out? Yeah,
I think we were fortunate when we were at Newcastle. Like, we had some real world-class players in the first year I was there. Like, we had Caitlin Johnson, and we found that once she, found a rhythm at the club the second year or the first year that I was there, she went on to play Origin and probably had a real, the game in Canberra down there, she had a real impact on the game and probably turned the game in their favour for New South Wales to win it. And then we had someone like Millie Boyle who turned up. She'd come from Brisbane, and her leadership and the way she trained it's second to none. And then we had Tamika Upton. We were fortunate enough to have Tamika at the club, and we all know how that's gone. She's played a big part in winning 2 grand finals, being the Dally M Player of the Year. So there was the skill set of some of them players, and the effort is absolutely phenomenal, and only just keep getting better and better with the better education they're getting from coaches, and the season's getting longer and longer, so they get to train more. It's becoming more and more professional.
And not long after, a couple years later, a couple premierships, an opportunity landed to go to New Zealand, and obviously it's a role that you're going to be moving over. It's a big transition. I've heard you say family is probably one of the biggest things that stuck with you with all your career in coaching, and they're along the experience with you. Going over there, what's probably one of the most exciting things you're looking forward to, like family-wise, outside of coaching?
I think importantly, when we made the decision, it was a family-based decision, and the other thing is, like, it's an opportunity to take my family to a different country, experience a different culture. My daughter will go to school there. Unfortunately, my son won't move in the initial instance, but he'll spend plenty of time over there with us. So it's an opportunity to go and experience a different lifestyle, a different country. And I think away from the football over there, like, I see them as the Māori people and people of New Zealand. They're so family orientated, so from our perspective, it's just going to be great to have everyone come on the journey with us. I think, and one thing that we talk about a lot, and I think that when we speak to the players over there, and we want their families involved, in the whole process of what we do from day one to when we finish, is because at the end of the day, when football's finished, all we have is memories that we create with our families. So that's why it's so important from our perspective to make sure that everyone comes on the ride with us.
Awesome. And you're a proud Gomeroi man.
Yep.
And you've grew up Newcastle, and you're also proud Novocastrian. So
yep.
With those experiences you bring, what connections can you already make with New Zealand and the culture that you've been exposed to just in the short amount of time that you've had over there?
Well, I think they're very similar to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, where they're so inclusive. From our perspective, from an Aboriginal perspective, we're so inclusive. Everyone, whatever I've got, you've got. Your family's involved in everything, and the way that they carry themselves and the way they respect their elders. There are just so many similarities between my culture and the Māori culture. So, when I was over there for the All-Stars previously, the other thing that really struck me, and something that we're really looking forward to, is they don't practice culture over there. They just live it every day. So that's something that we're really looking forward to.
Okay, so rugby league over in New Zealand, it's very heavily known as rugby union land. The All Blacks, the Black Ferns, they're quite prominent over there with their rugby. But rugby league, tell us what was the landscape like of rugby league over in New Zealand prior to you taking on this role, and what do you look to change once you're over there in terms of the landscape of rugby league there?
Yeah, I think from an outsider looking in, when I first arrived, it was just trying to understand where rugby league fits in a country that's so heavily dominated by rugby union. And at this point in time, they don't have the pathways or the development opportunities. That's why the Warriors have now set up their SG Ball and Harold Matt's team, Jersey Flegg team, to come and play in Australia, because they don't have that in New Zealand. I think, over time, I believe that they will have a nationwide competition that mimics the Harold Matt's SG Ball, Tasha Gale, Lisa Fiala, but they'll have that in New Zealand. If they want to eventually have two teams in New Zealand, that's the only way it's going to survive, is by having pathways that lead to both of those teams in the North and the South Island. If we think, that we can keep flying teams in and out of Australia to play at a junior representative level, I'm pretty confident that eventually the bucket of money will dry up. It doesn't matter who owns or runs the club. It's not really financially viable long term. But in saying that, we need those systems in place to make sure that the Warriors can be long term sustainable and successful. And we need the same thing for the NRLW. And at this point in time, they've got they've got some reasonably strong domestic competitions, but they don't they're not the same as Australia. They don't play all the way through, and they're probably not as well structured at this point in time. But in saying that, I reckon the Auckland, the A-grade competition over there, I watched from afar, and I watched the Wednesday night competition, then I watched the national rep competition at the end of the year, and those things that I'd seen about those players, I thought to myself, there were certain traits and things that I liked, and I thought they could probably play NRLW. They've got a really good base. Then I went and watched them live when I got there, and I think it reaffirmed everything that I thought. There's a reasonable competition, and it'll go from strength to strength. Now they've got something to aspire to. And in terms of the rugby and different things like that, I think that finally players have got a choice to play either sport now, which they haven't really had in the past. You could obviously play a myriad of sports over there: softball, soccer, netball, but rugby was the predominant league or predominant code. But from our perspective now, they've at least got another option where they can choose rugby or league, and it's up to them. We can present them what a pathway looks like into the NRLW.
So with a lot of them playing rugby and rugby league, do you find the rugby players that are coming over, and we can see in the NRLW, there's a lot of rugby players that are being signed, and we can see the value that's been added to the NRLW. The quality has just gone better in attack and defence, and we can see that this has given the game a greater level of, I won't say status, but it's got more people interested in the game. Can you tell me, just from a performance perspective, what would the rugby players be bringing over to rugby league at the highest level?
Well, I think from a performance perspective, and I think the level of professionalism, if we look at someone like Michaela Blyde, who we've signed, she's been in that system for, a really long period of time, since she was 17 years old and left high school. She's 28 years of age now, and it hasn't been full time that whole period of time, but at this point in time, rugby union over there, and the sevens game is professional. The NRL isn't right now, so they can bring the expertise on how to prepare for a game, what to do after a game, how to recover, how to prepare for training, what to do after training, how to apply yourself at training to make sure that when you go out there, you leave everything out there. So from that perspective, they bring the professionalism on how to prepare and how to train, how to recover. But they also, because they train full time, they're like exciting elite athletes. So they bring that. Then our players then get to learn off them. But importantly, some of the players we've signed, they still understand they've got to come and learn the game. So we've got to teach them, and they'll lean on their teammates, to learn the game. But there's just some real positives to having them come over. It also gives us a different set of eyes on our code. From my perspective, that's important. And both codes at this point in time can survive in New Zealand, they can survive in Australia. And if someone's playing Super Rugby the start of the year, they can play NRLW at the back end of the year, so they can earn a full-time wage throughout the year playing both codes.
So you're saying for the female athlete, it can give them nearly a whole year-round type of experience being a semi-professional to professional type of athlete?
Yeah, definitely. Like we've signed Shakira Baker, who was in the Black Ferns or the Sevens system. Now she just plays Super Rugby. She'll play at the start of the year Super Rugby, then come and play NRLW with us. And when I spoke to her, one of the drivers was she just wants to train and play. She's a school teacher by trade, and she does that. But if she's got an opportunity to train and play, well, that's what she really loves and harbours ambitions to do that full time.
A lot of people are coming out saying and using the word poaching, that rugby league, the NRLW game, is poaching players from rugby union, whereas we can see it's quite different to the male landscape, where from a young age it's more often than not that males are going to be playing rugby league for most of their life, or rugby union, to juggle both demands of the sports. It's not realistic for a lot of players, and it doesn't suit a lot of players. But in the female space, in Penrith alone, a lot of the players that we see are playing basically both, and we can see obviously the benefits of that, but also the lack of opportunities that it highlights. When we're talking about New Zealand, we can see so many players are coming out saying that they want the opportunities, that they're keen. What do you have to say about this idea of poaching, and what's your take on it?
I think at the end of the day, whatever decision a player makes, it's always, important. It's always the most, it's a decision that's based on what's right for them. So we can talk about, cross-code poaching and different things like that, but all we're doing is providing them with an opportunity to come and play a wonderful sport and earn some money whilst they do it. And the skill set that they'll learn playing rugby league, they can then take back to union, and vice versa. If a player plays, goes from, or if the skill set that the players learn in union, they bring across to us, like they're comparable. Understanding the games are different, they're vastly different, but at the end of the day, all we're doing is providing ladies with an opportunity to earn a full-time living, playing rugby league or league. And they'll make the decision at the end of the day that best suits them, whether they want to stick with league or union. And there's enough, there's an opportunity. I believe that players can still play both at this point in time, and all the players we've spoken to in New Zealand, we've highlighted that to them. If you want to play rugby, at the end of the day, go for it. But we'd love to have you play a season of league at the same time, when you're finished.
Someone like Portia Woodman, Wycliffe, will they be on your radar?
We spoke to her initially. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, it just didn't quite come to fruition. Unsure why. I had heard rumours that she'd signed elsewhere, so if someone snagged her, good luck to them.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have her domestically at home. But,
yeah, definitely.
No, she's obviously, along with the other very, very big names. You can just see, just by social media, all the signings that have happened from over New Zealand. We especially have a lot of people from New Zealand who are quite big supporters of the Warriors. What do you think is going to be one thing they're going to look forward to next year, in their very first year back in the NRLW? What can they look forward to?
Oh, I think importantly, whoever watches the team play, they'll see a common thread on how we want to play. We won't waver from that. We're realistic enough or humble enough to understand that, we've put together a squad, and, we believe it's a really talented squad, but we also understand that, some of these clubs, they're foundation clubs. They've been here for a long period of time. They've got players that have played, 25 odd NRLW games. They've been, 5 seasons in a row. They've played for the Jillaroos, and they've played for the Kiwi Ferns. So we understand that the foundation, the framework, they're way ahead of us from that perspective. But, one thing you'll see from our perspective is every time we go out there, we'll leave a performance out that everyone can be proud of. And there'll be a common thread on how we play and what we look like. So if you walk into the ground on game day and you don't know very little about football, you'd be able to watch our team and pick up what we are, who we are as a team.
And what are some of those things that you want people to know about the Warriors, about your values that you want to instill as a club and as an identity of the women's Warriors?
Well, I think importantly, I had a little bit to do with the NRL, the New Zealand Warriors, when I was over there, and we're really lucky because what we what I believe in and what the club believe in and what the men are doing. They're all working towards a common goal of really investing and immerse themselves in the community. I think that's a real common trait right throughout the club. So, for us, it's about connection, making sure we immerse ourselves in the community, and take everyone on the journey.
At the end of your 3 years, in a perfect world, let's say you're given a limited supply of resources, New Zealand has become the hottest ticket in the world of rugby league. You've got everything at your powers. What does the end of your 3 years look like in a perfect world in terms of development all the way through to first grade and women's?
I think importantly we need to have a nationwide competition where it's girls get the opportunity to stay at home and work their way through that program and play in NRLW, and we're realistic enough to know that people are going to have to leave New Zealand to come and play for an opportunity. Like, going to have to leave New Zealand to come to Australia because there's only so many spots you can have in an NRLW team. But a good, strong domestic competition, a strong junior pathways program that leads to the NRLW, and some real great coach education programs. I think importantly, if we can run some really good coach education programs and develop coaches and put them alongside me, where I one day become redundant and they take my position, well, I think we've done our job. And ultimately, we want to walk away with a premiership. Yeah.